we went in and they said, you know, this tumor has hit such a growth spurt and we need to make sure that this isn't a high-grade glioma. And I said, well, what if it is? They said, your daughter will not live to see her second birthday.
Thank you for allowing people to open their minds, Lord, to see that this is your gift to us, your gift from heaven, that you have given us this medicine to treat our babies.
When we found out about Sophie's brain tumor, I had no idea this would be the gift from God to her.
Amen.
When your kid's got cancer, the rule book goes out the window, really. You need to get them well and you need to do everything that you can to make them well, and I wouldn't feel right if I didn't explore everything that there was.
They found over 20 tumors in his chest. At that time, Dr. Storch told us, now is the time to do alternative medicine.
People have been using cannabis as a medicine for 5,000 years. THC has always been kind of the star of the show because it's the most psychoactive. But then research started showing that there were a lot of other cannabinoids in the plant that had as many, if not more, therapeutic effects.
For me, one of the most exciting areas is cannabis an anti-cancer agent? The number of different ways that cannabis and cannabinoids in the test tube seem to suppress cancer is quite impressive. But in oncology, we often say the plural of anecdote is not evidence.
Cancer cells plus cannabis together in a petri dish. We know what happens there. There's a lot of studies that show that.
Right.
We do not have human studies, and certainly we don't have studies in pediatrics.
Perfect. Look at that.
If we want to use marijuana as a medicine, we need to make it a medicine. We haven't done that yet.
My friend dying from pancreatic cancer can't wait for studies.
Yeah.
My child can't
That's the problem. The controversy about it kind of makes me mad because it's at the cost of our children. You know, it's at the cost of our loved ones. And a lot of people don't want to try this because of the reputation.
One can argue that there's a human right to have the government provide you with a medicine. But at the very least, there has to be a consensus that the government should never deprive you of access to a medicine which can be helpful.
Why, as a society, are we denying people the use of something that I have seen firsthand over and over and over again be helpful?
You ready to kick cancer in the butt?
Yay! Oh, so excited!
It started off with a swollen tonsil, which I just thought was a throat infection, so it didn't concern me too much. So then the lump didn't go away with the antibiotics, so he got admitted, and that's when they thought he had 10 days before it blocked his airways, and 8 days later he got the diagnosis. I was really surprised when the doctor came in and handed me this treatment plan, and I just thought, that's really odd that it's already been designed, and then I realised that it was one size fits all for that particular diagnosis, that type of cancer. Then I was quite worried when he said, oh, this was devised in the 70s. And I said, what, it's not been changed since the 70s? And he said, oh, well, yeah, slightly, you know, but fundamentally, because kids' cancer is quite rare, not much research gets done, which I find quite worrying, because you'd hope that with medical advances, things would have changed slightly. He's the single worst case of chemo-induced nausea that they've ever seen. Literally, we've tried everything that they have on their list of options. We've tried everything. And then there was the marijuana. And marijuana's the only thing that's really, I mean, it doesn't work all the time, but when it works, it really, really works. Then I started reading about cannabis oil and the anti-tumour properties of it, and I thought, well, if we're using it to treat the symptoms, we might as well give him the anti-tumour dose at the same time. It's all about supporting the side effects and helping the chemo to do its job of getting rid of the cancer. They're the two main things that I'm trying to do with this.
we first came here, I was kind of clueless. I had no idea what pediatric oncology meant, so that was terrifying. You know, even though I've done this like more than 100 times, I still get a little afraid of the needle.
Hello.
Hi, Rosemary. Hi, how are you? I'm tired but good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
That's good.
We're gonna count 1 to 3, right?
Yeah, and then 3 is when you put it in, like always.
1, 2, 3.
AJ's 17 years old now. We first found out that he had cancer. He was 13. He was 13 years old. We found out that it was osteosarcoma cancer, bone cancer. By the time that they caught it, he was already stage 4. I believe it was his second chemo. His lungs collapsed because the cancer had spread to his lungs, also being stage 4. That trip was like 6-8 weeks solid in the hospital, that she lived in the hospital with him. It came back again, and it was basically in his spine. But I think they took out 2, 3, and 4, and then put a steel cage in.
And they removed his ribs.
And then they removed some of his ribs where it was attached to, I think, 1 or 2 on each side?
2 on each side.
2 on each side.
Since my hand has kind of been messed up after one of the surgeries on my back, they had to sever some of the nerves, and those nerves were going to my hand. So my fire button used to be my mouse 1, but I changed it to looking into my dinosaurs inventory instead.
A month and a half after the surgery, he was sick, he didn't feel good. They found over 20 tumors in his chest. It was very bleak at that point, and AJ does not know how bleak it was. We've never told him that. He's a 17-year-old kid. He needs to concentrate on getting better.
Brano is down for the count. Hey, survival of the fittest.
This is the raw oil form that we get when we buy it.
When we started using it, we had to get a permit, and then we could start actually getting it from the dealer, I guess is the right term, distributor. I'm not sure what the correct term is to not make it look bad or sound bad.
Sheila and AJ get out and go upstairs, and I'm driving the truck in Beverly Hills, circling the parking lot, trying to find a place to park. I can't even find a place to park. She gets in her truck, AJ gets in her truck, and she's got this little teeny bag, and I'm like, okay, so what was it? And she's crying, and she's like, I wish you could have been there because of all these questions. And I'm like, okay, so I'm curious, what is this stuff? What is it? What is it, and how much did we spend?
Yeah.
And so she pulls out these 2 little syringes that are like 10 grams or 10 milliliters, like supposedly all the same or something like that. And there's 2 of them. And she goes, this was $1,010 for those 2. And I'm like, it's our son, what do you do?
Hi, Tracy. Hi, so nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for coming all this way.
Oh, honey, it's
You know,
my
you've had such
pleasure.
This is Sophie.
Hi,
Sophie. You just got her up from her nap. Yeah, she's still waking up. Oh, she is.
Yeah,
She's always been that
quite
way.
the special
Really?
little baby. Neither one of us could imagine putting our tiny little baby through chemo. And the day that we decided to not do chemo was the day that I felt like I could breathe again, and I'm sure he would say the same.
Yeah. It's just so counterintuitive
Ugh.
to do it.
We got the scans, said it was optic pathway glioma.
Here's the core of the mass sitting right there on the optic cross.
These are excellent pictures.
Here. Oh, and this is only one of them. And then here. This one is of her spine. Her spine's totally clear, so it's
Thank
not
God.
metastasized or spread in any way. And then this
Is that the most natural, normal place for it to go?
Yeah, just none of that.
Okay. Let me just mention this. I don't have medical training. I don't claim to have medical training. I just have something that I feel is more important, and that's experience. We're going to have to experiment. There might be times when, as we're figuring out what her dose is, we might go, oh, okay, that's too much. It can't hurt her. If it is too much, all it's going to take is the hours of it getting out of her system.
And that's what we love so much about this, is that she's not going to be suffering. She's not going to be in pain. We don't have to watch her deteriorate. She's perfect health-wise.
Yeah.
She's had one cold in 9 months, and that's because Daddy
Except
gave
for
it
that
to her.
damn cancer.
Except for that huge mass in her brain.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Yeah.
So literally 1,000 stars had to align for us to finally change our mind on cannabis. That was the only thing that we just completely dismissed and refused to research because we just thought it was so ridiculous.
We looked at everything else but that.
And it was all from Facebook. One of those mommies said, look, there's a lot of legitimate science going on around it. So we started really looking at this positive research on cannabis. And I said, honey, this could be it.
So how do we...
It's the first time. I'll just go ahead and do it, okay?
Okay, sure.
Now, I'm giving her a tiny, tiny amount this first time, okay?
Okay.
And she's never been exposed to this. And then you draw back on this so it doesn't keep pouring out.
Okay.
Okay?
Here, let me mama. Oh, here we go. Good job, honey. Will she feel any of the THC, or is that CBD going to count
until
till she?
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
If she has her breakfast at 10:30, then you're not going to be giving her this until probably 11:30 or
Right.
so, and then we don't have time to get 3 doses in.
Okay.
So let's start out at 2 doses and see how she does.
Well, we can wake her up earlier.
I know, but let's do as little to disrupt your day.
Okay.
2 is going to be fine. It's not going to be the day. I know how I've come to learn over the years that we're not that powerful. We can do the best we can. We can, whatever, but whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not that powerful.
We just want to do what's best.
I know, and I understand that, and you're a wonderful, wonderful mother, and you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
So for now, let's just start with 2 a day.
Okay.
Well, we're awfully happy to be able to help and be part of
we're
her
happy
journey.
to have you. We really, truly are. I cannot tell you how much this means to us.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Let's put her to sleep.
You want to go wake up?
You want to go night-night, Bobelle?
Go night-night.
You want to go night-night? Let's mommy get you some milk ready.
Sophie,
Actually,
we're going to get you better.
it's a little bit past my nap.
You're going to live a long life.
This is ground up like a medium ground coffee grind. It's what we found works out the best.
No matter what, no bubbles, completely decarboxylated all the air. I went in for a pretty routine surgery. When I got out, I had hospital-acquired spinal meningitis. They sent me home from the hospital on fentanyl patches, morphine, all kinds of horrible drugs, and basically said, here, this is the rest of your life. I'd gone from being this incredibly vibrant, can do anything person to I'm the one sitting there watching while everybody else is living their life and I'm doing nothing. I identify as a Dallas girl, as a Texan in a lot of ways, a Jewish Texan, which is even weirder. I never liked cannabis. I was one of those people that smoked pot a few times and was like, I don't like the way it makes me feel. On the other hand, I had to do something because life was becoming less worthwhile living day by day. Oh, it's gorgeous. Okay. Be careful with that water while I'm over here with the weed. You know
All
how I
done.
feel about that.
It's done. There's not even a dose left in that.
Okay. Want to taste it?
Purple Urkel.
What I found was no consistency, no predictability, certainly nothing that remotely resembled medicine. So as a process engineer, I'm going to have to do it myself.
And we need to. We learned that we had to activate it first, or decarboxylate it, and then you can cook that into an oil base. And so we went in the cookbook and tried to find the recipe with the most oil in it.
The first thing I made was my Aunt Zelda's carrot cake. I can gauge how strong I made it by how much of regular oil versus infused oil I put in it. Then we would weigh the piece and know exactly what the dose was in each and every piece. And that's called medicine. What's happened just from having the cannabis as far as improving my health, it's just been miraculous. Hey Nance, Mara here. I just wanted to let you know, I know you've got the .054 capsules of the canatonic. If there's any way you can back off a little bit on the morphine and oxycodone, that would be really great. I have to make up the medicine for Linda. Got Marie. The way I manage this is pretty much with my hair on fire all the time. Unfortunately, it's just Stuart and me.
The biggest problem with cannabis is that everybody has such a different tolerance for it that the biggest problem is dosing. And that's why we're dosing specialists.
Now, what do you recommend for Linda for her cancer? She's at stage 4. It's in both lungs now. It's all through her abdomen. So we really have to get aggressive at this point. But she doesn't want to have that feeling of that quote-unquote stoniness with the high THC. I was thinking about putting her on the Williams Wonder and then cutting it with the canatonic.
That's a good plan.
Okay.
Marie.
As many people as we can help. I mean, we just can't say no. I mean, how can you say no to a needy person? I mean, how can we send them somewhere where they're just going to get bad product or bad information? The whole protocol is going to be about £1, which is like $1,200 is about what we pay for it. And we just pass that on to you, and then we cover the overhead. Well, how did you find us? Google.
I didn't even know we were on Google.
Take care. Help's on the way.
Seizure reduction went from 30% to 70% seizure reduction. I've been a physician now for 24 years. I made the change from pediatric ER to cannabis practice because I knew someone who was using medical cannabis who was sick. And seeing her do so well with this, I thought, wow, here I am a doctor and I don't even have an opinion because I don't know. So that's kind of where then I started that quest for knowledge to make myself a person who understands this and then can help other people understand it. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for getting up early to come here and hear me speak. I have seen things that we can call miracles, and I think it's really important to understand that to a family that's suffering, it feels like a miracle, but it's really just science, and there's no reason to be afraid of it, and there's no reason that this is not an option for everyone. In 1988, researchers discovered living things, humans, have cannabinoid receptors in their brains.
Most people are familiar with dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, classical neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are chemicals that allow neurons to talk to each other. When neuron A talks to neuron B, it sends a chemical messenger across the synapse, and that binds to receptors at neuron B, and then that turns into electricity.
What we've discovered is that there's a part of that system is governed by cannabinoid compounds. These are just molecules that we have that bind to these specific receptors, and they seem to play a role in smoothing out the whole communication process.
It seems to be so important that a group at NIH recently published a review and said that the endocannabinoid system is involved in essentially all human diseases. Now that's a very strong statement. Very strong.
Those receptors are not there for the cannabis plant, but it turns out that the cannabis plant compounds called cannabinoids work at those receptors.
So when you take a cannabinoid in from outside by smoking or vaporizing or eating or a pharmaceutical, you are somehow tinkering with that system and adjusting the way in which those nerves and muscles and communications happen.
I often joke around with my patients, it's not magic fairy dust, it's not voodoo. There are chemical compounds in the plant that interact with the cells in our brains and in our bodies and have certain reactions. It's the same as every other drug. It's just came from a plant.
I, as an herbalist, felt duped, felt lied to. As I tell people about magnificent herbs all the time, cannabis was just off limits. I mean, I was in that culture of it. I thought it was this poisonous weed. I have 9 children, and I have seen a lot of people with cancer. These experiences are just too overwhelming to ignore. I looked at my books and said, there has to be cannabis in here. I've never looked for it, and it was everywhere. They start out with, this is so well known to every good housewife in the country that I shall not need to write a description of it. And then it goes down to tell you, including how to use the roots. And this book is 1805. All of these tabs are references to cannabis and how to use cannabis. We lost this. This is a tool we really need, and we're not too stupid to do it. We're not too stupid to handle this plant.
My father said to me, you know, when I was at the University of Minnesota School of Pharmacy in 1928, one of the assignments we had was to make tincture of cannabis, and we had to be very careful because the alcohol was illegal. And I thought, well, how quaint, you know, but we don't use plants anymore. And it probably took me a good 15 or 20 years to really appreciate that this stuff still was medicine.
It was part of the pharmacopoeia, you know, well into the 20th century. It was a frequently prescribed medication, not to smoke it, but in its tinctures, etc. And if you look at then why and how it was criminalized, really the key factor was the role of racism and xenophobia, anti-Mexican sentiment. People often point their finger at Harry Anslinger, who was the founder, the first head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. But in fact, he didn't start off being an anti-marijuana ideologue. It was really as the 30s progressed that he began to see the political opportunity in this. The Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 is basically a prohibition law.
The American Medical Association told Congress in 1937, we sent a representative and said that you should not ban this substance because substantial medical uses and developments will be neglected, and also there's things that we are already using this for that we don't have substitutes for.
Is this a medicine? Cannabis has been a medicine for 3,000 years. It only hasn't been a medicine in this country for 70 years. I think it's a medicine.
It's 70 years of propaganda that you're trying to fight against, and that's not something that's going to change overnight. I mean, honestly, you know, a lot of people look at me and say, really, you would have given your 7-year-old child marijuana? And with what I know now, absolutely. But if you'd asked me that same question 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would have been in that skeptical camp. You know, unfortunately, the parents know a lot more about this than the doctors do, because when you become so desperate that you're willing to try anything, you learn. And if I cry, I apologize, but a day before my son passed away, I prayed to God to take him because the suffering was just too bad. And if I can help one parent, just one, not make that prayer of desperation, that's what my goal is in life.
Here's her bottle. Give Mama a kiss.
See, nap time, I'll see you in an hour.
This is her Cannabis Oil Regimen that we have right now. CT stands for the Canatonic. We give her the size of about a half a grain of rice 2 times a day. So this is what Sophie looks like when she starts to feel the effects of her medicine. She's not moving around as much and she's a little sleepy faced, but this is it. It is day 8 since we first started giving her the cannabis oil. She, as of today, is starting to get 2 different oils. So considering that a little bit of sleepiness is all we're seeing as a side effect, I'd say this has definitely been a much better alternative to chemo thus far. All right, let's see if we can get her to take it. Come on, honey. Good girl. There you go. We just put a little drop on her pacifier. Tiny, tiny little drop. So we're going to give that to her while she's sleeping. So we had to up Sophie's medicine. She's in a very good mood. Aren't you, honey? Are you happy right now? She is playful and laughing and smiling. Yeah, I'm just glad you guys are supporting us, holding off on the chemo.
We recognize with this diagnosis, there is some room here in terms of exploring complementary therapies, but in general, we have a historical standard of care that we have, as long as we keep that in mind,
Absolutely.
Moving forward, for sure, we definitely can intervene at any time, and she already has the port device in place.
They all know what our treatment plan is. They all know we're using the oils. They've had nothing negative to say. They haven't thought in any way, shape, or form we're being bad parents or doing anything that is harmful to our child in any way, which is fantastic because we wouldn't do it if our doctors didn't support us. He did bring up, the chemo word, which, I even hate talking about it. We still believe in our hearts that this is going to work. I mean, she's thriving right now. Her eye's getting better. And I don't know if it means anything, and Dr. Chang couldn't tell us if it means anything because you don't know until you actually do the MRI scan. If I looked at it from a logical standpoint, as the tumor gets smaller and releases pressure, the eye shakes less. That to me is logical thinking.
Right.
So I'm going to go with logic and say that the tumor's already getting smaller. That's what I'm going to go with.
Oh, BJ has to see the doctor. He has to see the doctor so we can get some more medicine.
Get some chocolate and then get some.
Let me check your eyeballs. Look at my nose. Okay, now can you follow the light with your eyes? Don't move your head. Look up.
We went to the pediatricians.
Okay.
They evaluated him, and that's when she sent us to the ER and said that we probably would not return home because she realized it was serious.
Right. So they diagnosed it based on what they saw on the
Yes.
CAT scan and the MRI.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay. And then what did they tell you?
What they normally do is radiation. It had to be done like right away because he was already to the point where he couldn't swallow by the time we, the first day of being in the hospital.
And what did they tell you his prognosis is?
Well, they suspect 6 to 9 months of life. After that, then it would be the end
So
for
they
him.
shrunk it to give him more quality of life.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And they had nothing more
Oh,
to
so
offer.
scary.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. In the state of California, my job as a medical cannabis consultant is to determine whether or not AJ qualifies based on the law for medical cannabis, and he does. Okay, so I'm gonna get you the letter.
Okay.
And everybody talks about a card. It's not a card, it's a letter. And in that letter, I make the statement that he qualifies and that I'm approving him to use it. Okay. You've probably heard of stories of some of the other patients that have had brain tumors that are responding to high-dose cannabis oil.
Yes, ma'am.
There are no guarantees because I have to tell you, there's no clinical trials. There's no, I have had 10 kids with the same tumor and we studied them and half of them got placebo and half of them, it doesn't exist. He's still within 2 months of being diagnosed.
Right.
It's still pretty early, right? Even though it's a fairly aggressive tumor.
Right.
You're not coming here saying, we have, they gave us 2 weeks.
Mhm.
You have some time here, which
Right.
is really good.
Okay.
Okay. There are some side effects.
Okay.
They're not like side effects of chemo,
Right,
which
and
are devastating.
Right.
It's to me nothing to be afraid of at this point, right? Because for him, I mean, not to be, dramatic about it, but it's life and death. I mean, you're not getting any other options here. And as a mom myself, I would do it in a heartbeat, knowing what I know and seeing what I've seen.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of medicine are we giving her?
Turmeric.
Turmeric?
Yeah, she doesn't care if it's spicy. She's used to it.
Oh, what a brave girl. She's brave. And then what else do you give her?
I give her black medicine.
What do you give the black medicine on?
Ice cream.
An ice cream? What kind of ice cream?
The good kind. Why should I take a black medicine?
You gonna give your baby black meds?
I don't know.
What does that do?
Make the cancer go away.
I was deathly afraid when I realized we were on the oncology ward. Like, I remember them saying, you have to wash your hands before and after you leave the room because we're in the oncology. And I was like, it was like 4 a.m. I'm like, what does oncology mean? I'm sorry if I'm like, I don't know what this means. And she's like, this is the cancer. And then that's when it hit me that my daughter like literally had cancer. They sat me down, they're like, this is a 97% curable rate. She's going to finish this treatment. She will go on to live a long, healthy life. The side effects are very minimal. Like, you have nothing to worry about it. Just like, trust us, we'll get you through this. She has the best cancer that you can have. So we really did trust them.
She went through her 6 months of chemotherapy, and then we went about 4 months out of treatment without any evidence of the disease. I remember I was at work and I got a call from Jacqueline saying that, she was breathing weird, something wasn't right. So we took her in the emergency room and she was diagnosed with stage 4 complete metastasis. Her right lung was covered top to bottom with cancer. And this time she would have 4 medications. You have to have 2 new ones because as everyone knows, cancer cells, they become resilient to chemotherapy, so you have to up it. It has to be stronger.
This one was much more aggressive and harsh, and right away, I mean, we could see her. I mean, just all the life that was in her was gone. She was 3.5 and 19 pounds.
Yeah. We didn't know if she would survive it. It wasn't looking very good for her, and the hospital could not guarantee her long-term survival. And so we were able to opt out of treatment, which is very rare. It was an unpopular decision. I personally did not believe she was going to survive the next round of chemotherapy. I think my worst fear was obviously losing my daughter at home at my own hands.
And my uncle told us about the cannabis oil. He gave me some to try. Yeah, I got liquid gold. I was like, let's go. So 3 months after we opted out, we did a scan, and the 4.2 was down to 1.62 millimeters, and the one that was slightly over 1 millimeter was completely gone. And of course, we believe that it was definitely the cannabis.
Wow, can you give him bezos?
I can honestly tell you here right now that my daughter would not be alive today if we had not done it. I believe 100% that she is here because of that, because of cannabinoids and because of our faith in God.
I don't doubt that it's definitely cannabis oil, but we just don't know what's in it. I mean, one of the problems with it not being regulated and it not being controlled is that you don't know what you just have to trust that the people that you're getting it from are doing it the right way. And I was just a bit concerned because when I opened this, it smelled kind of solventy, but they said to leave it out to breathe. But it would be interesting to know what the components of this were. It shouldn't be like that, should it? There should be a place where you can go to and you can get advice, you can get it tailored to the treatment, tailored to this one at night, this one in the morning. I mean, it should be available and it just isn't, and that's why we're all floundering in the dark, really. It's okay. Yes, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I'm so sorry it's taken you so long to get here.
This is Dr. Raybar.
Hi.
Call me Jeff.
Oh, good.
My job is public health and safety, to make sure there's nothing here like solvents or pesticides or, microbiological contaminants that could cause harm in those fashions.
We've been kind of doing it in the dark, really,
Yeah.
so I'd be really grateful to hear.
Yeah.
your
So, in the information age, you can get a lot of bad information and some good info.
Problem, yeah. That to me, it's a little bit solventy, but it's not too bad. Do you think that's horribly solventy?
That smells really, you can let
Maybe
Jeff
that was
smell it, but it smells very solventy to me.
Something different. Well, there's definitely a little alcohol, but it smells like rubbing alcohol.
Yeah. Smell that one.
Not like
that one's
ethanol.
worse. Try that one. That one stinks. That one I thought wasn't too bad.
No, that's rubbing alcohol. That's isopropanol. You should not be eating that. No, that's no good. They do use.
Oh,
that
is rubbing
it's
alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol. That's not ethanol. No.
That's not food grade.
That smells like the alcohol.
You're giving him the.
No, not that one. No.
I don't know if you've given him tremendously large amounts that you need to be concerned about complete damage, but it will, be more difficult on the liver to metabolize that, and it could cause damage to certain cells. When they're on chemo and they're on other medications, the liver is already on. It's pretty busy, so we don't want to make it worse.
Right. Tito's not gonna. He's okay.
Okay.
And here's the other travesty: $3,000.
3,300.
$3,000 for those 3 tiny little pots.
That's disturbing.
I know.
A lot. It's the hardest part of what we do because I always have to be the disseminator of bad news.
The government will let us start testing it for medicinal purposes. That will help as well, because right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're only allowing tests to happen that show how it can hurt you, not how it can help you.
I believe it was, 6% of the studies are currently funded for good purposes, and 94% are looking at bad purposes.
The U.S. National Institute on Drug Abuse, NIDA, funds the vast majority of drug abuse research, not just in the United States, but in the world. The way they encourage scientists and researchers was all about trying to identify harms.
Congress in 1970 placed marijuana in the Schedule 1 category high potential for abuse, no medical use and treatment.
Marijuana is in the same category with heroin and LSD. Cocaine is in a lower category, Schedule 2, because it has legitimate medical uses in some limited areas.
Unfortunately, we still have this block of the Schedule 1 status. So the federal government is telling us there's not enough research on cannabis to deschedule it from Schedule 1, and then they're saying, but you can't do research because it's Schedule 1. So it's put us in this really horrible position.
The DEA is blocking recognition that this is science on marijuana's medical efficacy, and you just can't be in the dark about that and say there's no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States and no standard for safety. That's a lie.
The first evidence that cannabis may have anti-cancer activity actually came from our National Cancer Institute in 1974. But mysteriously, those lines of investigation disappeared.
I started downloading studies like 5 years ago. There were like 450 just on reference breast cancer. And now there's maybe 30 on there. Where'd all those go? Where'd they go? Why'd they go off PubMed.gov? Why is the government taking those studies off?
Luckily, there's research going on in other countries that hopefully it will be able to use to make a case to deschedule marijuana in the United States.
There are no prescriptions in America. There's recommendations. Doctors aren't allowed to prescribe cannabis, allowed to recommend it. In Israel, every one of the patients is prescribed cannabis. It's a federal license, and because it's a federal license, the growers grow federally, the patients use federally, so research that's overseen by the federal government is then being conducted. So you don't have that block. So the research started here in the 60s. We were gifted with Professor Meshulam. He isolated the cannabinoid THC.
How come morphine had been isolated from opium 150 years previously, and cocaine had been isolated from coca leaves 100 years previously, and the active compound in cannabis had never been isolated in pure form? Its structure was unknown, so it was impossible to do any biological work. In science, Israel is a very liberal country. While in the US it was very difficult to do cannabis work, here we had absolutely no problems.
Dadi is the epitome of science. The go by the book, study for your 8 PhDs, and work on curing cancer type of guy working with cannabis, which is unheard of today.
When you put cannabis extract or THC and CBD, which are the main cannabinoids in the extract, it can really kill the cancer in a way we call apoptosis. Actually, the cells commit suicide. Every cells in our body have like a checkpoint that they are checking if there is a problem. And if there is a problem, they will kill themselves, they will commit suicide. So what we see is that cannabis is giving the cancer cells back these abilities that they lost. In the first row, we can see colon cancer cell lines growing in the plate. Every dots like this, it's a cells. When we're adding cannabis strain number 3, CB3, we see all the cells are dying here. 100% of the cells died here. What is even more interesting in this image, when we are growing colon cells, which are not cancer cells, and we're adding strain number 3, nothing has happened, okay? When we're adding the same strain to the colon cancer cells, they died. When we're adding it to the normal cells, they are not dying, it's not affecting them. The same thing with strain number 4. In this image, it's very important. We see we're adding strain number 3 and 4 that kill the colon cancer and the breast cancer. Here it's not affecting the prostate cancer. So it's very important to understand which materials we have in these strains, what are the pattern of cannabinoids and terpenes there, and why it's affecting one cancer and not the other.
We've been in the field of cannabis for about 20 years.
We started to do experiments with cancer cells, and we were expecting other results. We were doing metabolic studies, and what we saw was something completely unexpected. We were killing cancer cells. So these are one of the first experiments we performed with animals. We treated immune deficient mice. So we injected glioblastoma human cells underneath the skin, and we generated these tumors. And half of the animals were treated with cannabinoids, in this case with THC, and the other half received no cannabinoid treatment. The tumors of these animals that were not treated with cannabinoids are way bigger than these other tumors. More recently, we have been working on breast cancer, and here we represent tumor volume, how big the tumors are as time passes. And this is how tumors that are not treated with cannabinoids behave. They grew, and this is the THC-treated population. As you can see, they have less metastasis in the lungs, and they have less tumors per animal than the control group. So it works pretty well as well.
We are also realistic, and we know that there are many therapies that have worked finally in mice, and then they fail when they go to humans. Of course, we need robust clinical trials to get to know finally, at last, whether cannabinoids can be or not anti-tumor agents in precise patient subpopulations.
Good morning, Sophie. Hi, my love. And for the light of light. Oh, big stretch. Good morning, honey. So today is the big day. Today is the first scans that we're going to be getting to see if what we're doing is working.
You're gonna get a nice nap, Sophie.
Yeah, baby doll. You're going to get to go to sleep really soon.
You're gonna get a nice little nap, baby girl. Hi.
Mixed in with
No. Just like NS flush, like your little flush turns, and then followed by heparin flush, which is this. This is 30 units.
So we're headed home from scan day. Sophie is very unhappy. The anesthesia is making her really super cranky, and she's tired. And the radiologist said that she would read them by the end of the day today, so we're hoping to get information pretty quickly. Hello? Hi, hold on. I'm trying to get it on speakerphone. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Hi, guys. Yeah.
Hi.
So, I'm not sure if you got a chance to glance at the MRI. Unfortunately, it does look a little worse than it did back in June.
So that means we got to start chemo ASAP.
I think our trajectory is unfortunately chemo.
So when do we have to start?
So I think we can start this week. And then we can spend some time in the office and go over everything again.
It's not smaller, it's not stable, and that means chemo. Which is just, it's like really, really, really hard to imagine what that's gonna be like.
Here's the good news. We're very, very far away from where we want to be. It's not like we had around this really high dose and it didn't work.
Right.
And we're going to play around with it till we find how Sophie's most comfortable with it.
We're 100% gonna keep using the cannabis moving forward. Now we're gonna increase her. Not only just because I believe it will work alongside the chemo, but it will also counteract the side effects of the chemo. I don't think that cannabis has failed us. I think that we don't have our dose right. We're in uncharted waters. We're lab rats.
I am Mara. Hello, Angela. Oh, my pleasure. Nice to meet you in person.
Yeah. Doctors will call us. We have one doctor that called me a cannabis doula. And like, I think Jeff called me like a cannabis midwife. Oh wow.
Take a smell.
Oh, I just can see it first of all.
They did say
thinness.
you have to let it breathe.
Who said?
The person that I bought it from.
This is alcohol. This is just pure alcohol in here with a little bit of cannabis diluted in it. Okay, here's what I brought. For example, this is the high THC.
Right.
This is the one that
Is that
Stuart
labeled?
made. Everything's labeled. Can you put your feet down or no? No? Where's the pain the most?
My stomach on my head.
In your head? This oil that we made is is different. It's a little different. It's stronger.
and it doesn't have all that alcohol in it. That alcohol could be burning your stomach too. So, any questions you have, any concerns, anything. But I want to know all the adjectives, all the adverbs, how you're feeling, anything that doesn't seem right or whatever. And if this strain doesn't work we'll try another strain. There's 4,500 strains, and we'll find one that helps. We have probably the most paperwork of anyone I know, of any collective. We tell people right off the bat, we're collecting their data. We are expecting to use the data to help find solutions for diseases and for, to help to use it for other people. It's all just experimentation at this point.
Okay.
All right. Is that better?
You've had a lot on your plate over the last couple of weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here to answer any questions you have and walk you through what we're going to do. One of the syringes I sent you is Hindu Kush.
Okay.
And the other one is something called Yummy.
Okay, I see now.
And then the 2-to-1 CBD to THC.
So you said that the Yummy is higher in CBD. Am I hearing you right? Okay.
The Hindu Kush is a high THC. And I'm not sure which one is going to do better. After an hour, maybe 2 hours, just see how he does. I mean, you're his mom and dad. You guys are
right.
Really know your son.
Right.
You don't ever have to worry about him taking too much, and in a matter of hours, it'll be over.
Okay.
There's nothing that you can do to screw it up other than to not give him his medicine.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. That makes me feel better.
Okay.
You cannot hurt him.
Yes.
You would have to probably take a pound of oil at once. The body cannot overdose on cannabis.
A little bit. That's all you have to do. Just put on his tongue.
Under his tongue.
Under his tongue. Wait, you just lick it off. Lick it off. Lick it off. Lick it off.
How'd it taste?
A little good.
Okay. A little bit.
All right. Good job, AJ.
Really
Let's have some fun.
Dad ready to have some fun too.
Okay.
We just so happened to have a couple of salsa bottles in, so I threw the salsa away. And, well, we ate some of it, but I commandeered the jars. And the Tostitos, I put the THC oil in because I thought T and T. And then there wasn't any cannabis that began with an M. Oh, I should have said marijuana, shouldn't I? But the CBD's in the other one. But I actually did label them wrongly on the name. Anyway, we've been playing with them a little bit because we're trying to get him to eat. And THC promotes appetite and CBD stops your appetite. So we've been messing with the proportions, but we've kind of stuck to 2 to 3 now. 3 THC, 2 CBD. You woke up giggling yesterday morning, didn't you? And Mara was very pleased.
And so how do you feel now?
Good.
You look good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right on. Well, that's good.
Chica, I'm going to see how it feels, okay? If it's ready, let's a little extra time on it. I'll be right back. I'm going to get your mask, okay? Where's your ear, Chico?
Here.
Listen.
Here you go.
I was going to say, he likes sticking his nails in.
Squeeze me or dig into me as hard as you want to.
Okay, I just want to find it. I know.
There you go. Perfect, 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 perfect. There you go.
It's
There you
done.
go.
It's already
There you
done.
go. It's over.
It's all done. I'm done. I'm done. That's it. It's all over. You did fantastic. Okay, it's all done. It's all done. Breathe, Chico. It's all done. Oh.
Hello. You can just have the sweet potato fries. Whole bag of...
Chico had a really horrible harsh chemotherapy regime. It was very punishing, and he had 28 daily radiation sessions over like 5 or 6 week period. He was probably in hospital more days than he wasn't in hospital. Luckily we were in a legal state. It would have caused way more stress
to try and do this illegally and behind the backs of the doctors. At least everything was above board, everything was up front. I just find it absolutely staggering to accept that in this day and age, with the billions of dollars that are spent on cancer research, that the medicine that we were relying on is made in somebody's kitchen.
All good?
I just want to get you home and get you back, you know, normal.
Bob. Look. So I've already started the dose. She gets a much larger dose now. She's almost at a gram a day, a 1-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC. So we got her up to the cancer-killing dose. She's completely acclimated to it, has no side effects, no sleepiness. You would never know she's taken anything. Come on, baby. Oh, you can do it, honey.
Yeah, you got it.
Come see Mama.
You got it.
Yeah. Woo! Oh, good job, honey. You okay, Pumpkin Pie? We went in and they said, you know, this tumor has hit such a growth spurt that we need to do a biopsy and we need to make sure that this isn't a high-grade glioma. So then we had to schedule brain surgery. And luckily, all the tissue samples came back low grade. He hasn't had the best day today. I'm gonna have to do some IV fluids tonight. He's not drinking a whole lot, which is all part of the chemo. We're on day 5. It's kind of weird that it's so delayed, but she's not been doing too bad overall.
Here, baby, open.
Big bite. Yay, good girl. There she goes. You ready for some amazing results? This will be the second scan since we started chemo and have been at high doses of cannabis. So now we just wait. We wait for the good news, don't we, baby? She's hoarse from them putting a tube down her throat.
We just got the call. There's some cell death. The tumor is actually dying in certain areas. There's no new growth, and they said that they would like to be able to take credit for it all, but they just don't know if they can. I'm just thrilled. This is the most amazing news we could have ever gotten. She's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. Oh my God.
I mean, we still have a battle ahead of us. We're still gonna have to do chemo, but I can actually see the future. I can see walking little Sophie down the aisle and you know, taking her to first dance recital and all those things that you want to do. It's a good feeling.
It's 5 milligrams of oxy, okay?
He was addicted to opiates. He'd had to have Dilaudid when he was in the hospital to manage the pain, and that had created an opiate dependency. So they put him onto methadone to transition him off. Now, I fought and fought and fought them putting him on methadone for months and months and months. Finally, I caved in. And I knew that if I just managed to get him home, I could have got him off the opiates with oxycodone and cannabis oil, because I'd done it so many times before. But I caved in and agreed to put him on methadone, and it was a nightmare.
Your mom's here. We're taking a pause right now. We're taking a break. You're okay.
Jacob, can we get some paper? Yeah.
Would you let a first or second grader or any child use medical marijuana?
We do know in people who start before the age of 15 and keep doing it throughout their life, even sporadically, tend to have an impact later on in life. They lose about 8 IQ points on average. Again, these are hard studies to come by. That was a study out of the Netherlands.
How does methadone affect the developing brain? How does Dilaudid affect the developing brain? How do these heavy-duty opiates that they prescribe willy-nilly to children? Nobody looks at the effects of those types of medicines on the developing brain, and I can tell you for sure that a kid who's on methadone is way, way lower in terms of their mental capacity and functioning. The best thing we ever did was get Chico weaned off methadone as fast as we could, and we did that with the help of the oil. We titrated the methadone down as the oil came up, and we saw his mental capacity return as the methadone went away, even though the cannabis oil was coming up. That's why I'm not really taking very seriously the IQ point argument, but even if it's true, frankly, it's a small price to pay.
When we started the oil, it was right after surgery. He was in so much pain. Every morning, she leaves at 4 or 5:30 in the morning. When he would wake up, he would be crying in bed, screaming for me. He was in so much pain, and I would give him 2 Oxycontin at 6 o'clock in the morning. 2 to 3 hours later, I would give him 2 Norco. 2 to 3 hours later, I would give him either Advil, Motrin, Excedrin, anything I could give him to get to that next span of giving him 2 more Oxycontin and then 2 more Norco. And we were doing this around the clock the entire time.
And he wasn't eating and he was vomiting all the time.
Yes.
But you know what's amazing is, you know, when she brought us home and she says it's a sesame seed size, you know, half of it, and you look at that. You look at what size that is.
It's nothing.
And I looked at him and said, this isn't going to work. You know, I felt like we wasted our money. Hi, Monkey. What are you doing?
Getting some orange juice.
Within 3 days, he was off all the pain pills. He was eating.
It was like,
wow.
It was like
Amazing.
Monday or Tuesday
Amazing.
when we started it. By Friday, he was taking 1 Oxycontin all day, and it was just like, something's happening. I don't know what, but it's good.
There's so many people out there that could use this medicine and where it could improve their lives, where they are so far off from having access. And in the meantime, they're just being fed a steady stream of pharmaceutical drugs. And year after year, we see the number of people dying from accidental overdose due to pharmaceutical drugs get higher and higher.
It's remarkable when you look at this explosion of research studies coming out about the way in which marijuana is reducing the problems with opioids and other pharmaceuticals.
80% of the prescription drugs are made from opiates, and I think as the world learns and understands that it's addicted to heroin, to opiates, I think that the world, once over, will learn how to free itself. But right now, the science is being blocked, and it's being blocked by big pharma not wanting the science to succeed.
In the big picture, the pharmaceutical industry, which controls the medical community, it's a big money-driven machine. You have these people, they're using morphine, they're using fentanyl, all these drugs that are respiratory depressants that in themselves can accidentally, inherently kill you. But because it's prescribed by the hospital, because it originates from our pharmaceutical industry, it's accepted by society. And this has this reputation for recreational use, and it's by technicality a Schedule I narcotic. It's, you know, it's a little, like I said, infuriating because, you know, for us, we're using it to save our child's life.
Okay, so we gotta take your black medicine, okay?
Okay. And then get ready all by myself with them in class.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You don't have to get me ready anymore because I'm a big girl. You don't have to get me ready anymore.
So this is Aunt Zelda's. We use a 1-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD, which is what most cancer patients use. When she was very sick, at our highest, we were at about $3,000 a month in oils. Now that we're down to a maintenance dose, it's roughly about $1,500 a month.
More than our rent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, literally, we sold bikes, we sold
Everything.
just whatever we could.
You know, I was very maxed out at this point, working as much overtime as I could. So I just kind of asked, what do you guys do on the job when they get sick? Because we're doing something completely alternative. We're not using our insurance anymore. So that next day, they got in touch with a charitable organization called the Fire Family Foundation. Up front, they're willing to pay for a month of supplements. And I was a little apprehensive. I'm like, let me just be clear on what we're talking about here. You know, we're talking about medical marijuana. This is cannabis. And they were like, that's fine, we know, we're happy to do that for you.
We came up with a plan to figure out how we could get some extra funds for Jim. When he told me about the cannabis treatment, I was like, you know what, you're going to do what it takes. And I'm sure if it was my daughter, I'd probably do the same thing.
We're humble, prideful people. I mean, I'm too humble. I'm maxed out. There's nothing else I can possibly do. And if you don't reach out, your child's not going to get her medication. She's going to die, so.
It's heartbreaking to see that there's something that can help your child and you can't get it. For these parents, I can't imagine. We've been in that situation, and doors just keep getting opened, and it's amazing, and we're blessed beyond means because we have our baby, and so nothing else matters. But if you're paying into insurance should pay for what you want it to go to help whatever is showing success. It's saving our babies' lives.
Kiss? Can I kiss? Thank you. You're so sweet. You're so sweet.
Now the nerves really start kicking in. Scanxiety. Because we got to do this every 3 months, and this is going to be our life for a while.
Hi Betty, my name is Tracy Ryan. My daughter Sophie had an MRI scan today. Would I be able to put in a request with you to pick up a disc the second it's available?
Yeah, it's been finalized.
Oh, it has been?
Yes.
Okay.
So you wanted to get a CD of it?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to go get him. I always tell my husband that it could always be worse, and we see worse every single day of our lives. Everybody keeps saying God only gives you what you can handle, but I think that we get things that we can't handle sometimes. I feel like it's my responsibility and my duty to the world and to God and to my child to pass on this information and to help people. So I created a group called Canna Kids along with some other mommies that had sick kids. It's an amazing, amazing group full of wonderful women and men and experts and doctors and scientists, and it's just really wonderful. Hi, Lou. It shrunk. Let me get the paper. Lulu, it is half the size. It went from 2.6 to 1.7. It is half the size. The cystic component now measures 1.4 centimeters versus 2.8 centimeters on 9/23. It is also half the size. Lulu, these tumors don't shrink with chemo. These tumors don't shrink with chemo.
Oh my God.
Hand on a Bible. My doctor said if you can get this tumor to half the size, there's no way we can claim that it was the chemo. That's the only way. It has to get to half the size. Oh, here we go. Look at these huge black holes. That's the cell death. There's like nothing over here anymore. Like there used to be all kinds of tumor over here. This has always been the heavier side. This is, oh my God, that's the cyst. That's where the cyst used to be. Almost gone. I mean, it's just beautiful. I never thought I'd be saying that about a tumor. I feel very, very, very hopeful. It's working. Hi. We're here to see. Yes, ma'am. Say hi.
Sophie, did the sleepy medicine get you already, my Buffy? Then my cannabis doesn't even do this to me.
This is Tracy.
Hey, Tracy, it's Dr. Chang. So, thankfully, Sophie continues to make progress, okay? So
At 1 year of age, chemotherapy with carboplatin and vincristine was started, period. It's clear the tumor has shrunk enormously on the chemotherapy.
We're doing a lot of holistic approaches along with her chemo treatment. Have you ever seen this much shrinkage before?
I would agree that you wouldn't expect to see that much shrinkage of a tumor from chemotherapy. I'm not sure it's the chemotherapy.
Well, we don't think it's the chemotherapy.
It might be, it might not be, I have no idea.
Right. Honey, it's almost gone. I'm looking at all kinds of angles. It's almost gone.
Really?
Yeah.
Sophie, do you want to get up? Your chemo's done, honey. Your chemo's done, honey.
Hi, sweetie.
You're done. Sophie, Sophie,
I'm so proud.
Around 3 months into doing this, Dr. Storch looks at us and said, he looks like he's getting better. And I said, well, Yeah, he is. Another month went by, and reluctantly, I agreed to let the scans take place. She looks at us and says, I don't know how to tell you this. I can't explain it, but his scan is clear. There is no more tumors in his chest. 4 months, 20 tumors, gone. It's clear. We do the next scan, clear. The next scan, clear. The next scan, clear. She goes, there's no cancer in him right now. He's clear.
April's our magic month that I call it the magic month because that's when we're going to stop chemo totally and then just try to see if it is the cannabis, we're going to find out right there and then. You know, I find out a child has cancer or something, I go straight to the parent and I give them Dr. Goldstein's number and I say, you have to try, you have to try.
She goes straight to the parent and tells them, put your kid on oil.
I do.
100%. She just goes. I will look at the people and people that ask me about AJ and ask me about the cannabis oil, and I will tell them, I honestly don't know if this will work for you. But what I'm going to tell you is what it did for my son.
I have over probably 300 pediatric patients using cannabis right now. I have a case report of a 16-year-old who came to me a year ago, April, with a stage 4 osteosarcoma. They came in referred in by an oncologist, so bravo to her for sending the patient to me. He started cannabis oil in April, and in July he had PET scan, CT, MRI, and a bone scan, all negative for disease, which is really incredible. He had repeat scans in November, which were negative. I called his oncologist and I said, what do you think? And she said, well, he should be dead. I just saw him last week. His hair's growing back. He's off chemo. He's a little bit beat up from his 3 years of chemotherapy. For about the first 8 months of his treatment, he was on gemcitabine, which is in one study synergistic with cannabinoids to increase cancer killing. It appears so far that we're getting some good results. I never say cure with cancer because I don't know, but I definitely say extension of life.
First time that we talked with AJ, he was almost nonverbal because he had so much inflammation. Here he was 2 months ago, and here he is now.
That's him?
No more steroids. That's your typical cancer kid face right there. And that's him now. God, you gotta love that.
When they went back to Chicago, fortunately somebody in California was willing to act as an angel for them.
So we got AJ initially, he was on the Hindu Kush and the Yummy. And if he's only on 0.5 right now on that.
The skunk hasn't come in yet from our angel.
Uh-oh. We're gonna have to figure that out. This is not the ratio I want him at. I want him to be on the 5 something of THC and 2 something of the CBD. I want him to be on at least 2 to 1.
When the skunk gets here, we'll get back to that goal.
Right, okay. Do you have enough right now?
We're just about done at this point.
I would rather that you give him a little less each dose and stretch it out than risk running out of it.
Okay.
And how's he doing in school?
Oh my gosh, he's doing phenomenal. He loves going to school. He's on grade level at this point,
And that's on 1.5 grams of cannabis. What a rock star. Okay. She's doing 0.5 at 2 times a day and was only doing the 1 on the THC, which is not sufficient. When we had that big CBD shortage, they got some medicine from somebody else. Everybody that has a still is not an oil maker. Everybody that has, flowers does not know what to do with it. I get so furious with the lack of the lack of regulation and the lack of oversight. And that's one of the main reasons I want it legal, is so that we could start having standards and not have it be the Wild West, which is just insane right now. Let me call Tracy. Where are we right now on dosing on Sophie?
predominantly we're 1-to-1.
Okay. What made you decide to change to 1-to-1?
I thought that was what we had discussed a while back. I don't remember exactly why it was that we switched to a 1-to-1 because it's been so long ago, but now she's
Charlotte's Web and the THC that you gave me last. I can't remember what strain it was. It's not the Ringo Kiefer, I don't think.
So she's doing Charlotte's Web instead of our...
It's been predominantly Charlotte's for a while.
Really?
Because you remember you ran out of TD?
Yeah, I knew that, because last time I asked you, you told me that she's had a grand total of 2 syringes of Charlotte's Web.
No.
Yes.
She started using Charlotte's Web in February. If you look at your records and you see how much CD you sent me, it hasn't been that much for a while because you guys had that big shortage.
Right. So she's not really our patient anymore. She's just using one of our products.
Well, I mean, you've trained me well. We were having success. I knew what I was doing. I knew I had excellent medicine. You had trained me how to take care of her. How I was taking care of her was working. I mean, she has her own plants there, and it's $100 cheaper. Actually, this last one was only $204.51 for almost 10 grams. So I don't have a lot of money right now. I'm barely hanging on, and anywhere I can save $100, especially if I need to get 2 or 3 syringes, it's a big deal.
Okay.
I understand that. It's not that I don't trust your medicine or love your medicine just as much. It's really a financial thing.
Right. Yeah. Sophie's doing great, though, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, she is just as normal as any 2-year-old. We went and saw Dr. Bonnie Goldstein today to get her card renewed, and Bonnie just couldn't believe her eyes at how great she's doing.
Okay. All right. Take care. Say hi to everyone for me.
Will do. Talk
All
to
right.
you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
In order for someone to be our patient, they have to commit to allowing us to follow them and learn from them. That's the only reason we do this, is so that we can learn and understand whatever. If somebody's getting medicine from other places and then not taking it the way that we tell them to take it, they might as well just go to a dispensary and buy it. That's not who an Aunt Zelda's patient is. So I'm going to have to give considerable thought to whether Sophie is still our patient under these circumstances. And it's too bad, because I believe Sophie is where she is because of our protocol and our medicine. But oh, how quickly they forget.
The day has finally come that we are doing our first Canna Kids meetup. This is like our big kind of official Canna Kids launch day. So we're really excited. We've got a lot of people in the industry coming. We've got a lot of families coming. Hey guys, how are you? Sophie, hi baby. Oh goodness. Have a kiss. Thank you. Did you see your friends? Test. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a second. My name is Tracy Ryan. I am the co-founder of Canna Kids. So just a quick rundown of what the site is going to be. First and foremost, it's a massive resources section. So all of the information that I have learned over the years, that families I know that have learned over the years, since getting her on cannabis and using it alongside Western medicine, we've almost completely destroyed a tumor that was like never supposed to really shrink. So, little Sophie. So here we go, guys. On the screen, we have the Christmas tree form. There are 100 plants for our patients. I mean, I have to tell you guys, like, I'm getting really emotional about how everything is kind of evolving and like coming together. Look at what we're doing. You know, I mean, we're gonna change lives, and even if we just save one child, even if we cure one kid of epilepsy, if we shrink one brain tumor more than what we've done with Sophie, we've changed the world.
It's definitely an improvement. Yeah, I couldn't be more pleased.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Night and day, Chico. Night and day.
People double take, and it takes them a few seconds to realise that it's Chico.
I say, remember Chico, because, because it was really tough on you. This therapy was really tough. And we got through it. You got through it barely by the skin of your teeth, with a lot of help from, a variety of sources. And you know, to see you now, it's terrific. This is what I live for. Questions?
Can we get a renewal of his cannabis oil recommendation? I mentioned
Yes,
it to Margie the
absolutely.
other day.
Yeah.
Because we're still giving him a small maintenance dose.
Absolutely.
Because they say it helps prevent relapse and also stimulates appetite.
Absolutely.
As well.
A lot of this is very new for us, and so I don't know all the answers. The reality is we're learning, and that because of patients like you, Chico, our minds are more open towards these types of things, and that there are other patients that have derived benefit from our experience with you, and that is, I think, very helpful. There's still a lot that we don't know.
I just want to say thank you for being an amazing oncologist, and
Well,
thank
I
you for having
appreciate
such an open mind, and like, it's fantastic, isn't it, Chico? Isn't it? What do you say to Dr. Federman?
Thank you.
Do you realise you and what you did has made him change his mind and change his thinking? That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah.
You really should be. You really should be. We bought a bike about 2 weeks before he was diagnosed, and he wasn't ever able to get on that bike, and then monumentally got on the bike and started cycling. That was like...
I now consider myself a momcologist. I mean, 3 years of chemotherapy in and out of hospitals, and the research papers that have come across my desk, and the websites that we've now built to gather information and study all of the different clinical trials that are out there. I'm proud of the accomplishments that we've made in such a short time. Okay, yeah, let's check in here. And then for the press conference, we just go upstairs?
Yes, it's on the second floor.
Okay, right up there.
Yep.
Just up the stairs. Thank you.
Oh yeah, of course.
I started doing this 5+ years ago now, and I've been working on creating this software, fueling it with our data, and it's now out in beta. And we have on our board some of the leading scientists in the world. Christina Sanchez from Complutense University is coming for 2 months, and we're going to be having Dr. Noah Federman, who's on our board, from UCLA, oh my God, leading sarcoma specialist, and they're getting together to start, we're getting an IRB to start analyzing our data, and then run clinical trials out of UCLA, right? So the fact that we're at Harvard Medical School is so important because we are taking something that is seen on the outer fringe, and we are legitimizing it by bringing it into this traditional Harvard environment. So I'm very, very grateful to be here.
Quick video of you to send to my wife?
Yes,
Okay,
you
hold
may.
on. Okay.
Okay,
Whoa. I trust this woman with my wife's life.
Thanks. Can I ask you a question?
On the way there, please.
Hi, Mara.
Sophie is a mixed thing for me because obviously it's a little bit of a dagger to my heart because I was treating her and doing a really good job, and lo and behold, somebody's interest in becoming a cannapreneur got in the way of whatever, but that's a whole separate thing. As we say in Yiddish, sei gesund, let him go in good health, you know?
Mara, this is Jackie Green. Now I have this incredible line of gold medicinal oils, actually, that I'm about to give Sophie. Our own strain called Isabella's Bloom, which is named after her. Mara has been generous, and I'm forever grateful to her for the knowledge that she's given me and for the assistance that she's given to my child. But why not make an incredible oil and give my daughter free medicine? Are you guys doing it indoor now?
No, I'm talking about the actual processing.
But it's, yeah, it's not what it used to be.
Greenhouse.
Right.
Yeah. We do, in fact, promote whole plant extracts. You have to have the entourage effect. You have to have the synergy between the terpenes, the flavonoids, everything else that's in the plant, in addition to the cannabinoids that are in there. And even the cannabinoids working together have a synergistic effect. We must have clinical trials. It doesn't need to be in the hands of people like me. I'm glad that my software is going to be able to put it into the hands for the clinical trials and the doctors and all.
Unfortunately, California has a reputation of the Wild West, and I would say that without regulations there, it is kind of hard to practice, but what I'm going to tell everybody is that my patients are getting medicine, my patients are getting better, my patients have better quality of life, and so it is imperative the rest of the country follows California.
Eric Ruby.
Hi, nice to
I am a
meet you.
pediatrician in Taunton, which is about an hour south of here. I am the
great.
only pediatrician in all of Massachusetts who is registered with the medicinal marijuana program.
Good for you.
I am bombarded with
course.
patients.
Mhm.
I appreciate what you're doing. Please write something for the pediatric journals. It's got to be there.
Yeah.
And they've got to accept it. The pharmaceutical companies, I believe, are suppressing all of this. The impediments, the obstructions, I mean,
Yeah.
I've been in practice
Yeah.
39 years, and the people who lose are the patients.
Are the patients, of course, of course.
We gave our son, 8 months to live. So aggravated, upset that we had to go through all this to get, some type of I guess some answer, whether even if it works or not.
Mm-hmm. We did what we could do, and that's what matters.
Good morning. Oh, it's school day today. Are you excited?
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's excited. So he's still on quite a big dose, really. You can have it before you go to school. We wouldn't be sending him with his vaporizer into school. I just think if having this mixture every day increases his odds of not relapsing, then it's worth doing, isn't it? He's going to be a completely normal child, aren't you? Starting with brushing your teeth. Come on, go and get your teeth brushed quickly, we've got to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we should always be welcoming when someone comes in. Is your name Chico? You can take an open seat. The next thing I have to talk about is reviewing the dress code. I had a couple of students last year who would wear clothing that had like a marijuana leaf on it. That is not school appropriate. Once again, something that you wouldn't want to be caught with at school is something that should not be on your clothing.
Hey! Oh my God, look at you. Oh, it's so good to see you. You too. Look at you.
Is it good stuff? We got it from a shop that had been busted.
Oh, there's no instructions?
No instructions.
Chico came and he's like, Mom, I know what I want for my birthday. And he said, I want grow equipment so I can set up my own grow and grow my own plants and make my own medicine with Mara.
Oh, right on. It's so cool. So you'll have to come up to us and go into the lab and work with our chemist and actually make the medicine. That would be just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he said he wanted to dedicate his grow.
My friend who had cancer the same time as me, and she didn't make it, but we were really good friends, and yeah.
It's very special.
do things make me cry. Right. If someone had told me that I would be buying my 14-year-old son cannabis grow equipment for his birthday, I would have thought they were rather silly.
Absolutely.
But it's funny how life is, isn't it?
And some of them drink a little more water than the other ones. Some get a little more bigger. Some of them get like more fatter.
We're going to have a grand opening.
Yeah.
Well done, Chico. Thank you, Stuart. Oh.
It's my pleasure.
She loves it too.
I'm running to president to help legalize cannabis oil for kids so they don't have to go through what I went through. It makes me sad and kind of confused because I don't get why they can't have it if it really helps them.
The United States government, through its Department of Health and Human Services, holds a patent on marijuana as a protectant for the brain. It's something to protect the brain after head injuries.
How is that possible, that the U.S. government holds a patent?
The U.S. government holds a patent on one hand, and on the other hand, same government says it has no medical application. Journalists, I think, are trained to hate hypocrisy. This is hypocrisy. I've never seen it quite like this.
Why does the federal government hold patents on the various ingredients of marijuana if they don't think it has medical value? And why should the federal government be looking to benefit from future medical use of cannabis products because they have these patents? This is unconscionable. It's just unconscionable, the positions they've taken. And meanwhile, they keep denying and they keep denying and they keep denying. It's cruel. And years from now, in the future, people will look back on this time and marvel at how cruel we've been.
The whole idea of there's not enough research is actually true. There's not enough, but there's enough research for me to know, one, it happens to be a very safe medication, and two, it works.
The whole drug issue, the drug policy reform issue, is a human rights issue at its core.
The hope is that the use of cannabis becomes depoliticized and appropriately integrated into health, medicinal, wellness, spiritual, human psychcultural systems as it has always been for thousands of years.
Okay. Right, mate. Let's put your jacket on.
Go on. Zip it up. Now, have you been on a bike before?
A dirt bike.
Okay.
When Chico got sick, this friend of ours, Latch, kept sending him messages on Facebook saying, I'm going to be taking you for a ride on the back of the Harley. It just so happens that today is the day, which didn't seem like it was ever going to be possible at one point.
The louder you scream and shout, the faster we go. Any last words, Mum?
I think I'm more scared than
Bring
he
my
is.
boy back.
Yeah, have fun, enjoy yourself. You've earned this ride, Chico.
Oh yeah.
You really have.
A muffin?
Millions displaced by hurricanes, islanders fear the clouds and rains. There's no place else to go. This is our home, the only one. It should be clear what must be done by now. I'm sure we know. Our home. Our home. We're out of time, the world's on fire. No time to wait to get inspired. We've crossed the finish line.